What's behind gold getting to 2,500? I still see Main Street, Wall Street will always have treated it like kryptonite. They haven't changed. Gold has even outperformed bonds over the last 50 years, and yet almost silence and a pin drop when you hear gold compared to stocks and bonds.
Or what are you expecting from the BRICS that could be the game changer for gold?
When the BRICS are all said and done, whenever they reach the crest of whatever they're going to be, which is probably within 3 to 5 years, number of countries, etc., what they will have done to world commerce and trade will be the same what the Industrial Revolution did.
Hi everyone, Daniela here for ITM Trading with a reminder before we get to today's interview that if you haven't taken advantage of your free education session with one of us here at ITM Trading, I strongly urge you to book your appointment with one of our analysts here. You could do so. There is a Calendly link below in the description of the video. You pick the time, you pick the day that works best for you, and someone will help you build a foolproof wealth preservation strategy based on owning physical gold and silver. Do it, you won't regret it. Hi, this is Daniela Cambone reporting to you from Times Square, New York City. Welcome back to the Daniela Cambone Show here on ITM Trading, and joining me today, Peter Grandich of petergrandich.com. He is an expert when it comes to the gold mining sector, gold and silver commodities. Peter, you've been at this game for a very long time. Welcome back to the show. Always thrilled to have you share your expertise with us.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine 40 years in and around the financial arena, much of that involved in the metals and mining, and that I still have hair and I'm still alive.
I was telling you offline that in the past few weeks, I cannot tell you the amount of folks, viewers, emailing me saying, Daniela, Danny, please tell me, is the junior mining space specifically going to turn around? And I said, well, let me bring in the experts, because of course I have my opinion, but you know way more than I do, Peter, and have a feel of what's going on. Because, you know, if we look at the majors, Newmont has been quietly outperforming the S&P 500 since the gold price broke out of its 13-year cup and handle pattern, which began in Q2. But generalists, as you know, continue to ignore the mining sector. So if the majors are feeling it, the mid-tiers are feeling it, you know that the juniors are getting most of the pain. Talk to me about this huge discrepancy that we're seeing between, you know, the gold price and the valuations for the juniors, Peter. I mean, have you ever seen this in your 40-year career?
No, but to be real fair, I would have to say if you and I were having this conversation 2 years ago, I'd be saying about the same thing now I'm about to say to you, because even at that point in time, it looked like the discrepancy between the metal prices and the junior segment reached just such an undervalued level, but it has remained that way. The good news first is what you brought up. The major players have moved. That was not the case back in February. They were making lows. People were talking about the Newmonts of the world under 30 and Barrick and all. But they've moved, and we'd also seen an important thing happen, which will eventually get to juniors. And just give me a moment. We've finally seen a marked increase in mergers and acquisition. We've seen a few deals recently where not only big producers paid a premium, Goldfields and One paid 70% cash premium, but we've also seen them now pay for companies that still are going to need $1 billion or $2 billion more before it even be produced. So the desire for and need for resources acute. Now the logic is, well, who best than find those things are the juniors. But the juniors have suffered three big negatives that really haven't gone away, and it's handicapped them. I still think they're going to do well. I've made the biggest bet in my life on them. But these are three important handicaps that those people that wrote to you need to appreciate and then feel whether or not it's still worth dealing with them. The first and foremost is we don't have the same interest that we once had in this. It has competition. It's called cryptocurrencies. In fact, I would suspect if we did a poll of basically everybody under 40 and especially 30, Most of them that are investing, that invested for the first time, went into cryptos, not junior resource mining stocks. And that would have not been the case before cryptos. They would have naturally found some of that money into this market. The second, which is very challenging, is brokers or financial advisors, we were called. We used to build books of businesses around juniors in North America, Canada, and the US. And so a junior company needed to really just find a guy like me who may have 20, 500, somewheres in between clients, that if they got them interested in the company, you got all their clients. Well, if those people still exist, they're dinosaurs. The fact that there's no more commissions, there's just no way for the typical financial advisor to build a book just around junior resource. And that's critical. That was a key part of building your following. And then the third is regulatory. Here in the US, even if the company has an OTC symbol, most financial service firms don't even allow a financial advisor to accept an unsolicited order, let alone solicit business like that. That's been a handicap that isn't going away, but the need for a resource is so acute. And I think we're on the verge. I think the two shows that are now taking place or to take place this month in Colorado, we'll look back and say that was the kickoff. That's finally when the juniors have their son in the day. But anybody, and you've been in it long enough to know what I'm about to say is true, always remember this about the juniors. It never lasts as long as we like it to. And we got to remember to be and use a word that normally doesn't come into our vocabularies. We eventually someday have to become a seller. We tend to ride up that run and then we ride it down. And we got to remember that failure in the junior resource business is normal. 7 out of 10 companies right now, no matter how honest and hard they try, 3 to 5 years from now will not have been successful, found the mine, or was able to sell it for a profit. So buying and holding for the very long term in the junior resource market is a mistake.
Peter, on that note, so when folks are looking at, who to buy in the junior mining space, and I know this is a very difficult question, but how do you do your homework then? Like, how do you know who might be the winning horse?
Well, if I look at the tremendous amount of losers that I had over time, which at sometimes, according to my wife, outweighs the winners, uh, hindsight will say that most of it had centered around management and management decisions versus not finding or increasing a deposit. So at the top and very top has to be management. And even that can be a little tricky because management could be very good in one aspect, but as the company shifts, it's not. And I've experienced that recently. I had a management bet on a very big company, and they did a phenomenal job. They were able to get these projects for nothing, and the initial work was great. But as we moved and should have started moving towards more of the development, they demonstrated they didn't have the skills to do that, and the stock suffered. Thankfully, there's been a replacement, and we hope it's going to make up. So management is the absolute key. And I just say that if somebody's been at it 30 years and they found 3 mines, and all things being equal, there's another person that's been at it 30 years and hasn't ever have any credit of finding a mine, I think you just have to err on the side of the person that was able to do it correct 3 times. Because, like I said earlier, failure is the norm. For every one that's going to be successful, 8 or 9 won't.
You mentioned the Goldfields acquisition. They bought the Zisco Mining for deal valued at 1.6 billion, and you were saying offline that they bid that price because they knew there were other people in the room. So going back to that merger and acquisition activity, I mean, doesn't that tell you? That gives you some hope about the health of at least the mining sector overall.
Well, I know people worry because we're looking at and seeing substantial losses in our junior segment, but these were all the necessary steps to happen before the junior resource can have its day in the sun. We now have strong, almost unbelievable cash flow. If you think about some of the majors, you mentioned Newmont and what have you. In the last few months, gold's gone up anywhere from $500 to $700, and which would have been a 30 to maybe 50% increase in the price. Their expenses didn't go up that much. So much more profit has returned. This strong cash flow that now we're going to see in this next quarter will be even stronger than the last one. And I think they're going to be even more aggressive. What I do think, and what I think is we can suspect have happened is we're not only going to see more M&A outright purchases like the Goldfield, but we're going to see a lot of juniors that have good projects or great projects, but maybe not the financial backing to take them as far that they need to go. We're going to see a lot of majors do strategic alliances. We're going to see a lot of these bought 9.9% to spend X amount of dollars over a period of time, or outright ownership, and use that money to grow forward. I do think, and again, Daniel, I don't want to take away if you were going in a different direction, but I think another important thing for the junior market now, almost as important as that management, is where the project is located. It's just not like it was 20 or 30 years ago where we could have spun a globe, put our finger on any spot, end up in any country and say, yeah, we can go there. I think where you're located is going to be very, very important. And for me, at least, North America is basically where I'm confining myself to.
Got it. Let's get your thoughts on the gold price action. I mean, it's a breakout that we haven't seen in 13 years, Peter. Um, I know you've done past interviews. You've given forecasts of $3,000 gold, which honestly doesn't seem so far fetched from where we're sitting right now. I mean, what do you think's behind this gold rally?
Well, you helped bring me back into this business by doing an interview way back when gold was about 16, 1700, because you heard I got.
Wow.
And I had told you then
Yeah.
that I had actually got rid of equities to own gold. And then in 2021, I
Yeah.
did it again and suggested that gold will outperform both stocks and bonds. And it has. It's an amazing thing to sit here that we're at $2,500 gold. And even people that are still around that I know from the times that I've been in this business, we're not even getting excited about it, but it's been a tremendous move. And I've been a little concerned about that move of late. I felt we needed a little consolidation and correctiveness going into what I think is going to be the big, big news for the year, and that's the BRICS. But that 3,000 that you said is not really that far away anymore, and I think it's a legitimate target. And I do think after this, whatever this corrective consolidation phase lasts, we're going to challenge that. Right? I'll tell you this: I would clearly say that we'll see a print at 3 or higher without ever first seeing a print at 2 or lower.
You say it correctly that there wasn't tremendous excitement around this gold price. Why do you think that is, Peter? Compared to other rallies, I felt it as well. I mean, right now at $2,500 an ounce.
I believe this is true, what I'm about to tell you, Daniela. I think the most people who aren't excited are like me, that also have a lot of junior resource stocks. So it's like it's almost like semi frustrating, and therefore, because it hasn't fallen down to that level, the actual result of what gold has done has been tremendous. But I think what people should ask themselves, whether they own junior resource stocks or not, and if they're in just the general markets, is what's behind gold getting to 2,500, and is that going to impact other things other than your junior resource market? And again, I still see Main Street, Wall Street will always have treated it like crypto night. They haven't changed. There's not really anything out of the so-called mainstream financial networks where gold gets anything other than a little drop in the bucket, even though it's outperformed this since 2021. It's outperformed it since the year 2000, and now gold has even outperformed bonds over the last 50 years. And yet, almost silence and a pin drop when you hear gold compared to stocks and bonds.
You mentioned the BRICS as well. They have their upcoming summit. We see Turkey looking to join as well. Why do you think, or what are you expecting from the BRICS that could be the game changer for gold?
Well, it has been the game changers. One of the reasons I got so staunch behind gold 2 years ago. I believed 2 years ago, and believe more now than ever, that when the BRICS are all said and done, whenever they reach the crest of whatever they're going to be, which is probably within 3 to 5 years, number of countries, etc., what they will have done to world commerce and trade will be the same what the Industrial Revolution did. And I don't think Wall Street has even begun to understand or appreciate it. They still downplay it, they still laugh, they don't give it any credit. But we're seeing more and more countries. We're now seeing 50 countries formally go through the process to join this, with another 50 saying that they've begun the process of looking at it. And but I can't seem to get any regular financial advisor to answer me back this proposed thought is, if more and more countries who once dealt with the United States are joining a group where they're not going to deal with the United States, and they're also going to look to not use the United States dollar as their main form of trade, how does that benefit the United States compared to 10 or 20 years ago? And they all hem and haw because they know what the real answer to that is. It doesn't help the United States.
On that point, what are your thoughts as we head into the election here, Peter? Any stability coming for the economy?
So we've known each other for a long time. So I'm going to take us back 20 years, and we're sitting at one of those gold shows. And I said, Daniel, do you hear what just happened down in this country? The guy that never ran was president, and then he lost a close election. There was a lot of question whether it was hunky dory or not. Then they claimed he tried to lead a revolution. They impeached him twice while he was president. Then they made a bunch of charges on him, and one was actually found guilty on. Then, if he didn't turn his head, he would have been dead because a person took a shot at him. Meanwhile, the guy that did beat him 4 years ago on that questionable election, he was going through his term, and most people were questioning things going on with him and his family, and there might have been a lot of criminality, and then his health reason. And in fact, a year before, they wanted them to get rid of his assistant, his vice president. They actually wanted him to replace her. Then a year later, after he was duly winner of the primaries down there, they booted him out and they put that lady in. And you would have said to me, what third world banana republic are you speaking about, Pete? It's the United States. Again, it's an amazing thing when people think about what has transpired here politically and what's still to come. Anybody that sits here and thinks that they could just forecast this now and just assume things are going to happen if certain things happen politically, it's unbelievable. I mean, even the incident where he was shot at, and we don't even we're learning things about people that you thought were going to be responsible or were either very malicious in some way or worse than that. And this is what's going on. So I don't like to talk politics normally about trying to predict everything.
I'm reading this headline today on CNBC: layoffs jump in August while hiring in 2024 is at a historic low. This is a report from Challenger. Layoffs soaring in August, hitting their highest total for the month in 15 years. And the truth of the matter is, the economy is awful for the majority of Americans. I mean, do you think it's going to be the number one issue as we head into? I mean, there's so many. I mean, is it the migrants? Is it the economy? Is it, where people stand on, on abortion rights? I mean, what do you think is going to be the topic that will really impact voters?
So I've told people that there's 5 main issues now I think they have to build the financial arc. It's the most bearish I've ever been in my career. The first is the debt, 35 trillion, going to 50 trillion according to the Congressional Budget Office. A few years from now, we're going to have trouble paying the interest on it. The second is a retirement and aging crisis. 65% of Americans working paycheck to paycheck. People are not going to be able to reach those beautiful ads of living that last part of your life, so in luxury and all. The third is the immigration. It's an invasion. I've called it. I'm not alone in that. First, we only saw the damages. Thankfully, the governors there that were getting the big damages let other governors realize what this problem was. Now we're seeing the social and economic issue on that side, and that's only getting worse. The fourth we already discussed is the BRICS, and then the fifth is political paralysis. We have 2 parties that can't even go in the same room anymore together, and they each have a faction within their own group that think they're not doing enough. One's moving more left and one's moving more right.
Yeah.
So these are all issues that are going to be on the mind. But you made a very good point about the job issue. I wasn't alone in this, but I've joked for well over a year that the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, should just drop the L because they're BS. And sure enough, and what I predicted at the beginning of the year, I said it'll be over 1 million when they readjust it. It was close to 800,000. And when the final number comes out early next year, it will be. And this is what I think is an unbelievable thought that I know a lot of experts that you speak to follow the Fed. If the Federal Reserve truly depends on those numbers in the same manner how we get them, and this is what the numbers actually turned out to be, then that means Fed policy was way over tight, given that the employment was never as strong as what it was led to believe. And so it makes me really question the manageability of government when there's so much seemingly deceit, illegal actions, and then poor management of your responsibility of a job. So I think at the end of the day, people vote the pocketbook. How their life is going and all is
Exactly.
what they go in the voting booth with, not so much the commercials
Uh,
and the politicization of that.
And it will be interesting to see what the Fed does now, if what they're going to do at their upcoming meeting. But on the topic of US dollar and keeping the dominance of the US dollar, headline out over this morning, actually, that Trump is vowing 100% tariffs on nations that snub the dollar. Some say this will be a lose-lose for America and China. I mean, what do you think of that? Is that what is needed to stop countries turning away from the dollar?
They've turned the
He's obviously worried about the threat to the US dollar here.
they've turned already. The BRICS would not have 50 something countries coming to them with another 50 if the things that haven't turned. And the two things that turned it was, first of all, how we left Afghanistan. We've now seen and we've learned again just over the weekend how Biden mishandled that his own military and all told him not to go to the way that he did. We left our allies there. We lost soldiers that didn't have to die. But the big thing that really spooked so-called allies and anybody that was dealing with the U.S. is not only did we freeze the Russian assets, but we've now taken the interest that they've earned and we've given them to their enemy who they're fighting. And I know in the back room of any country, political power would say is, who's to stop the United States from doing that to us? And so they would want an alternative, and that's why they're looking a way to get out of the SWIFT. And one of the things that isn't spoken about, Danielle, and this is something that you deal with more better experts on pure gold and the things about gold than me, is not only has the purchasing of gold gone way up, but the repatriation of gold. Something like 32 countries have been repatriating
Yes.
their gold out of the United States back to their country. Why? I think it's all part because they're preparing that the dollar and the history of the United States of being the world leader monetarily and otherwise is over. It's just a matter of when it formally switches, and that's why they're doing those things.
And to that point, Peter, Russia growing gold and FX purchases by 600%. This news came out over the weekend. Russia will spend 8.2 billion rubles, that's 92 million each day on gold and foreign currency from September 6th, starting September 6th up until October 4th for a total of 1.9 billion. This is an announcement from the finance ministry. What is Russia looking to do here, Peter?
Well, they themselves, their foreign minister, their financial minister, and a couple other countries have thrown out some interesting info and data about what may happen in October. And one of the things they talked about in this unit, which hasn't been given a formal name, but how they'll use to trade among themselves, they talked about it made up of 60% of the different countries' currencies and 40% gold. Now, I got to tell you this, someday, somehow, and I'm not saying going back to the gold standard at all, but when it all blows up, when these hundreds of trillions of dollars out there in debt, which are never going to be truly paid off, and et cetera, you're going to need something to back your money for people to have faith again. And I think they're going back to relying on something that worked for a few thousand years, not something that just started recently trade a couple dozen years ago and trades crazy that really shouldn't even be talked about as a reserve currency, but actual gold, which just has worked for a couple thousand years.
Peter, as we wrap here, I'm just going to leave you with final thoughts for our viewers watching. I'm sure many will be happy with your thoughts on the junior miners, those who have been patiently waiting. But just final thoughts on the direction of America overall here. I mean, it's frightening times.
Well, like I said, my advice from our financial planning group is to build a financial arc. I think it's going to become very, very tough to be a typical American, hardworking American. Uh, we have such financial strains being placed not only on federal government, but state and local. We have all sorts of issues that are impacting people socially and politically. And I just think it's the time to err on the side of caution. Uh, I invoked a lifestyle that I didn't live in the first third of my life, but I certainly have certainly the last half, and that less is more. And I think that overall view is how people need to do. We should have positive cash flow. If we need to live within our means. Our country hasn't, and it's gotten way out of line. But it has to start at our own house and with our own children too, teaching our children and grandchildren that there isn't this endless amount of free money that you have within
Mm.
your means. Until we start doing it, there's no hope that the country will do it. But that's what I always suggest to people. It's not a popular thought. Most people are still trying to keep up with the Joneses. I say wave to the Joneses, say hello to them, but don't worry about what they're doing. Just
Less is more. I invite you to give that lesson to my toddlers, Peter, who want every single edition of Paw Patrol figurines that comes out.
it's up
So
to you, Danielle.
um,
You're going to have to make the decision
yes,
sometimes saying no, which hurts. But in the end, they're only
yes.
if they don't learn it from you, they'll have no shot learning it out in their own life.
You know what? That's really good advice. You're 1,000% correct. But it is hard to say no, but you'll serve them in the long run by doing so. I think. Peter, we're speaking. It's Monday Night Football.
Uh-oh.
Jets, San
I know what
Francisco.
that means for you, at least.
Any bets yet on who you think? It's too early to call the Super Bowl, but who looks the strongest to you right now?
Well, having worked with athletes for 20 years, but now
Yes.
because of what happened socially and politically, I don't watch it in the same manner that I do. But I am still fairly friendly with one of the greatest Jets of all time. And for the first time I heard him say in 15 years, I think they got a shot to go to the Super Bowl because they have an
Wow.
enormous defense. They've improved on offense. And if this guy doesn't get hurt carrying out a flag in the first 5 plays and plays the whole season, he's still an above average quarterback. My pick at the beginning, and was hard for me because one team I can't stand, but I do think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Philadelphia Eagles
All right, we'll see.
versus the New
Well,
York Jets is my prediction for a Super Bowl.
wow. Well, that'll be music to my husband's ears. Peter, actually, I was more curious. I wanted to know how you thought Tom Brady did on his opening announcement
Well, Daniela, I
career.
just don't watch football anymore like I used to. A, I don't have any clients playing it
Ah,
anymore. B, the only sport that I take the time to watch and still will go to is hockey. The rest of the sports I basically given up on. I mean, if I'm at somebody's house or I'm with Joe Klecko and he's watching the game, of course,
yeah.
but I just don't have the interest anymore. I got very mad the other night when I learned that they played another national anthem. I think there's only one national anthem. And if the NFL is going to do that at every game and expect people that, then I don't want them. I don't want them to earn anything off of me, and I certainly don't want to give them the respect that they've lost by doing that. So many people gave up their lives for the way of life and liberty in this country, and one of the great things is we have one national anthem. And when somebody starts playing another one, no matter where it was, then I'm not participating in what they do.
A man of his beliefs, Peter Grandich. Thank you always for coming on. I love catching up with
And
you and
everybody
seeing
wants to
you.
know, and I want to know, how do you keep getting prettier and younger looking? That's what I want. There's something with your camera I got to look at when this is done.
Peter, I'm going to slip you that 20 bucks after. You're too kind. And I just celebrated another birthday. But and I'm grateful for another trip around the sun. So I look forward to getting older, right? Because what's the alternative? But I think my kids keep me young, Peter. I have to try and stay young for them.
Well, just remember one
That's
day,
the
real
secret, I
quick,
think.
they're going to say, Mom, I don't even want you going to the mall with me. Mom, I really want you to
I
stay
know.
away. And then the last one is, Mom, give me the keys to the car. I'm going to the mall. And
I
they've
know.
grown up.
I know. That's why I'm cherishing this time now that they actually don't want to be apart from me, because I know one day, like you said, they'll be like, Mom, drop me 5 blocks away from my friend's house, right? Anyhow. Peter, love, like I said, love speaking with you, and we will see you soon, my friend.
Thank you very much. God bless Daniel.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. We'll have more great content coming your way, so be sure to stay tuned to the Daniela Cambone Show here on ITM Trading, and you can sign up at danielacambone.com. We'll see you soon.